Alright, hey, what's up, babies? Welcome to my channel. I'm EnviroBoy. I still a very, very phlegmy with cold, but I'm here, and I'm hoping that the cold has receded enough to the point that I'll be able to keep my voice going for like a whole streaming session today. We'll see. It's pretty ambitious. But we won't know unless we try, right? So that's what we're gonna do. We're just gonna try. Just gonna try. That's my mantra for most things in life. Just try. Just try. If it doesn't work out, that's fine. If it doesn't work out, that's fine. Just try anyway. Do our best. That's what we're gonna do today. But you know what? Before we dive into anything, I'll be back in like 20 seconds. Not even. Just 1 second. We're gonna keep the Kleenex close by. I'll try to remember to mute myself when I blow my nose, because it's disgusting. It's gross. I'm gross, and I can't help it today. It's not my fault, okay? It's the virus. It's the common cold rhinovirus or whatever's causing it, coursing through my system and my immune system for just going like full like five alarm fire nonsense over just like a little cold virus. It's always ridiculous. It's the thing that I think is so amusing about the concept of a common cold is the fact that it's like one virus kind of comes in and is like, oi, I'm just gonna make a few copies, is that cool? And your whole body just freaks out. It just, the runny nose, the scratchy throat, coughing, sneezing, fever, muscle aches, all of it, just the whole gamut. Ridiculous. It's unnecessary. It's excessive. I mean, I guess I'd prefer that over my body doing nothing about it, but sheesh. Okay, I'm gonna mute for a second because I gotta blow my nose. It's gross. 1 second. I'll lean off screen. Just give me a minute. Whew, I'm back. Boy, oh boy. You never realize just how much space is like up there in that nose and in those sinuses until you try to empty them and it just more. Just unpleasant. And I apologize that you're going to have to share some of my unpleasantness. But hopefully there'll be enough pleasant things in between that we can still have a good time. So let me go ahead and bring us over. Let's go ahead and bring us over here. Let's go ahead and let's get some bright done today. Oh boy. Boy, at the very least, even though I am disgusting with cold, good news is it doesn't take a whole lot of energy to just kind of sit here and write. Now, talking about it all day is, maybe a bit more energy and attention consuming than general, but it's better than if I were doing some sort of like fitness stream right now or something. Can you imagine? Can you imagine me trying to do like a jazzercise class right now? Ugh. Gosh, it'd just be a faucet. Just ugh, not cool. Relatable in the worst kind of way for everyone, I imagine. Oh boy, I'm gross. Okay, let's see here. We've been working on our Ham Pagan. We did that last Friday. We were working on some maps last Friday. Let me pull that up here. Gotta get our dungeon draft going here. There we go. Dungeon draft open. What did we open up? We had a few that we've been working on. We've got 3. I want to. Will it let me? Won't let me open all 3 at a time. Let's just get them all open and kind of assess where we were. Get that one loading here, and then I think we can have multiple open if I go at it from this direction. 2, and then 3. All right, let's get all 3 of them open up that we've worked on here. I remember feeling pretty pleased with kind of what we had come up with. Had some good creative stuff that we can build off of. And in fact, I don't know that we need to do a whole lot with all of these 3. So let's see. I'm gonna put it over just so that organized. What did we do last time? So we had this one. This was our little village that we're gonna have players visit a couple times. I remember that. And that's fine. It's a little bland right now. I want to. Actually, I'm going to do a little bit of changing. We're gonna change our terrain up here. We've been doing the prairie terrain, which I think is nice. And we'll just go ahead and brush some dirt in like our little pathways here where there's, you know, doors to make it feel like it's a city street there. But in general, I want it to feel more like a, jeez, we're going to put so much dirt here. It's hardly going to make it, but I guess it matters around the outside. It makes a bit of a difference, and we can like kind of dirtify these alleys just a little bit, right? Be hard for grass to grow in those shaded areas. Okay, there we go. That looks a bit better. I like that. It looks a bit more welcoming, kind of, in a way. Could look worse. We got that, and we got our 15 rooms like we've been talking about doing. So we can kind of mix it up a little bit, because normally it would be like 10 rooms, and players would really have one objective per map, but we're expanding the map a little bit for some of these, that players will maybe have a little bit more to do in any given map. And actually fill these in to make it feel more like this just continues the alleyway, and this is just kind of the important part of town. Because one thing to keep in mind too is, like, this isn't obviously going to be the whole town. This is just a small segment of it. We're actually working with a pretty large city. And so the idea is that there's going to be a whole lot more, but that's where, for any given part of it, that's where these danger, or like these, where is it? This is what I'm looking for, the long rest risks. We can also use these as like traveling risks when they're going through the city. So whatever kind of day they're on, because each section is going to kind of it's meant to simulate like each day they have to go out on an excursion for the wizard that's in town, and they're going to have to get some sort of supply for said wizard. Is how we're trying to sort of structure this and organize this. And so if we set it up so that our long rest can also be just like a travel risk, and it's like each day we'll have some different risks as they're trying to travel through this town that's like a ghost town, that is just kind of overrun with wild beasts and all that kind of stuff. That's kind of the vibe we're going for here. And so we can kind of utilize that to expand the city and make it feel a little bit larger, make it feel like the threats are a bit more present other than just like, you know, being confined strictly to this part of town or whatever. But we have this town which has a whole lot of shops and stalls and stuff in it, and we'll kind of decorate those and figure out what to do with them. And I have thoughts on how to kind of mix this up so that different buildings are accessible, during different days, right? So it's like, you know, maybe this cluster is not accessible and this one's not accessible, and maybe this one building is locked up, right? But then the next time, like, there's a hole busted through one of these walls that makes these accessible, while this building's collapsed and is no longer accessible, right? And like maybe the doors, maybe it's like these two were never accessible directly, but like you go through there, holes in the wall let you do these, but now that door is collapsed, there's no way to go in. You know, we can just kind of make some variations to make it so that different rooms are accessible, to make the map feel a little different from day to day. I think that'll work really well, to kind of mix things up, and we can kind of do the same thing. So that looks good as it is, right? For right now, I don't feel like we need to change anything there. Part 2 here. This was like a cathedral or a temple type area that we worked on. Let's see. I'll zoom out a little bit. There we go. So we have this temple, and it's meant to be 2 stories, right? So this is the first floor down here, and the second floor, because there's like a bell tower. That's right. And I was sitting there remembering the Bell Tower commercials. Bell Tower. Bell Tower. I don't know, man. I'm probably the only person in the world who even remembers that. But we have got this set up and we got different rooms, and the idea is that like maybe all of this is accessible or something like that from the beginning, right? But then players like it's just they can like kind of directly move up where they want to go, but then the second time they show up again, maybe some sort of damage has occurred that makes it so that they can't go up the standard staircase, which is going to be right here. Oh, that's something I should add there. That's not something that's gonna let me get some stairs going in here. Neglected to do that last time. And oh, not chairs, stairs. There we go. So goofy. So funny how it does that. Like the search function is so goofy on this program. I really like this program in general. Dungeon Draft. I think it works quite well, but it does have a few goofy idiosyncrasies to it that really amuse me. Let's see. I want to rotate this. I figure we can kind of put the staircase right there. What we'll do is then on our second story, kind of put it like that, so that goes down. And the idea is that conceptually there would be more stairs going up, because this is meant to be a bell tower, and this is meant to be kind of opened up in the center here. Excuse me. Oh my goodness. So we can kind of set it up like that. Like we like part of me really wants to just like for the sake of continuity and clarity and dedication wants to like put a second or third staircase that leads up to where the bell would be, but I feel like we can just kind of theater of the mind that and leave that there. Do they have they have bellows, but they don't have like a bell. Oh well. Yeah, I was hoping they might have like a giant bell that we could like put an object in the center there. Because the floor should open up. We could I think we could do that might kind of add to the let me see if I can finagle this here. So we were using that down there, but what if we take the color? What if we just like darken it a bit here like this? And then do like that kind of looks like it's a gap that goes down below, doesn't it? That kind of works, although it might be more like I don't know if we could get away with I don't know if it was a different one. I don't know what floor tile I used there, because obviously the patterning's a little different. The way I did test that concrete slab, it's not going to say what I did down there. Cave. It might have just been cave. I don't know. It's just like the color seems to match up with what was originally. Maybe it's this one. Cobble. I don't know. I'm not going to worry. Well, here. Yeah, no, I'm not going to worry about it. I think it's good enough as it is. That gets the point across. I wonder if we can do... They have like a railing? Oh, they have sails and stuff. Oh, I suppose we could kind of do like a wall there. Could just do like this wall. That looks kind of like a railing. We just do that. That kind of makes it look like there's a railing there. It's not terrible, actually. I don't dislike that. I think that could work. Yeah, I think that works just fine. I think that works just fine. Then we can just like, I don't know, like it's the problem is the wall is going to kind of block line of sight, which is not what I really want to do. I suppose we could kind of hotwire a little bit. We could just do like portals. But then if we do that, then we might as well just not even put the wall. I really wish they had like a fencing tool or something. That way you could put like a walking barrier, but not a sight barrier, if that makes sense. I guess if we did this, like did those windows, that would kind of make it look like a wall. kind of set it up like that, you know. Doesn't look terrible. I don't know, though. It's going to make that... It's going to treat that like it's portal zone. I don't know that that does exactly what I want it to do. Yeah, we'll do it that way, because I'd rather than be able to have line of sight and we can just theater of the mind tell people that they're not allowed to walk directly through there. As long as your players aren't really big, aren't super big buttholes about it, they'll honor and respect that, and that'll be fine. We can set that there. I think that looks great. I think it looks just fine. That kind of takes care of that. Yeah, I think that's good. That'll serve our purposes just fine. Okay, so there's our temple. I guess what I do want to do is I need to add a few labels here. We're gonna go ahead and put our text box on there. Put lower floor down there. Just do like a little there, and then just number our room. And as always, it doesn't matter what room is what number. It's just a matter of being able to keep our notes straight with our rooms, so we know like what notes go with what rooms. So there's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think that's how I had set it up. And then 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Yeah, that's perfect. That'll work just fine. I mean, 4 and whatever this one's going to be can kind of be the same thing, because it is like meant to be one big wide open thing, but I don't know, maybe there's a different monster or threat that ends up in there or something. I don't know. Fine. Let's see here. What did we leave off with? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14, and 15. There we go. Perfect. Okay, I think that's good. And that gets me where I wanted to go. Achieves what I set out to achieve. Yeah, because that's just the roof. That's just a single story. That's the entryway. We don't need anything there. Or our little church or a cathedral or whatever you want to call it. They're all kind of colloquially the same thing. They all kind of serve the same functions, so it'll be fine. Yeah, so that's good. All right, all right, all right. All right, all right. I like that. I like that. And then we had gotten... Yeah, we were making progress. This one I'm actually really excited about. This is going to be a fun one. So those two rooms that we just did, those are 15, those 2 areas, I should say, they're 15 rooms apiece, because we're going to use them both a couple times, so we want to have a little room to kind of change up what rooms players kind of visit and all that stuff. So I think that'll serve just fine with those 2. And then this one is only going to have 1 section, so it's only going to have 10 rooms, and this is kind of our mansion, our rich people mansion. And then we will also be doing the rich people sort of like their hedge garden that leads into like the family crypt or whatever, right? Because they're rich bougie people who would bury their own, you know, their own deceased in you know, on the family property or whatever. They're just one of them really aristocratic bougie families of sorts. Is sort of the thought here, because then our players are going to go here, and this is just where they're going to go to find some sort of like really big wealthy gem or something. Initially, they can just kind of travel through here, and then going into the ancient family whatever is when they find you know, they'll need to find like the bone of an ancient or something like that. They can go there, the bone of royalty or whatever. We'll make up some sort of spell that they need to find components for. It can be a little fast and loose, but it's fun. Like, I think this is cool, and I think it's going to be fun, because I wanted half of the building to be kind of, like, collapsed. And so the idea is, like, there's a large swath of the, like, building that's collapsed here that makes it so you kind of climb a big hill of rubble to get to the upper floors over here. But like these upper floors are inaccessible just given the nature of how it is. And then down below, these lower floors are those rooms in that lower floor are inaccessible just because of the way the house is damaged, right? It's almost like this half of the lower floor collapsed, and so this upper floor is like halfway closer to the ground and they can travel. Like the idea is that it's not completely intact level floor, but rather things are kind of like tilted and crooked and in shambles, but you can still kind of pick through and find stuff. So we can put like a treasure of some sort, you know, maybe there's like a couple jewelry boxes in here, a couple different ways for them to get what they're after. That's the idea that I have. I think that'll work out really well. I think that's good. We don't need to worry about staircases here. Yeah, we don't need to worry about staircases. But I am going to go ahead and decorate just this kitchen area. I mean, we can kind of decorate some of these already because I kind of know what room is going to be what for all of these. I don't know. Well, I don't know. I guess we'll do that. I guess we'll still do that when we're actually adding the details to the room like we normally do. Yeah, I guess I like doing that because I'll have certain ideas about like how much disarray this, that, or the other room is going to be in and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, and we kind of figure that one out as we're going, as we figure out what details we need to put in here and how we want those to sort of manifest once we get them in there. So I'm going to leave this as is. I am just going to add my labels here. Text box there. And so, oh, you know what? I just realized there's one thing that I did not do over here that I would like to do. And I need to just add upper floor here. I mean, I feel like that's kind of a given considering the other option is lower floor, but you know, now no one can say that I was unclear in my instructions. I gotta make it center. That's pretty good. Actually makes me think this one can be more centered. Okay, that's pretty good. Great. It matters. Okay, now this one. Okay, so let's go ahead and just add our labels here. We're gonna do room 1, room 2, then let's see, how did I do this? 1, 2, was it 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then we can do the 10 as the outside. So I mean, we could kind of do like that's a kind of a room. This hallway's kind of a room. 1, 2, 3. If we count this hallway as a room, that's 3, 4, 5, 6. We do this as 1. That's 7, 8, 9, 10. I guess I like that. I don't want to make the entryway, the small thing, like one own separate distinct room. We can kind of have that just be coupled in there. I mean, we could always use the outside yard as a room. Could kind of do that, but maybe we'll just have that be its own separate thing. You know, like approach, like that's the approach to the property as players are walking up, and we can kind of add some details there that aren't necessarily part of the dungeon proper here. Excuse me, I apologize. Oh man, we have definitely reached the phlegmy stage of the cold. Which I'm sure is just the most pleasant thing for everyone watching to think about. And I'm sure it will I'm sure it will net me an immense amount of popularity to be so slimy and frank about it. Live for all these people in the world to experience and share in with me. 9 and then 10 right here. Perfect. Yeah, so we can do that. Because this can be kind of fun, too. We can kind of make this a labyrinth. Like, have these doors, because of the rubble, be like, you know, have it so that the rubble and the crooked nature of the walls and everything kind of having been destroyed are pretty well locked. Unless players can get a really good strength check, right? But then they could still kind of, see, that's why I always switch over to move. Because you have to hold down space to move the map, but then it also still tries to type it. But yeah, so like players would have to come down there, and like that's the only way to get to 10. So it's like you could put some sort of really cool treasure up in 10 there. I think that's just the nature of how this is designed is going to make it kind of a cool puzzle-like room, right? We can have climbing up and down the rubble count as like the puzzles and the dangers. You know, the puzzles are the traps. You know, it's like the puzzle is this one that's a bit more stable and widespread, just trying to find a way to get up there without twisting an ankle. And then this one's more like a trap where it's like this part of the floor is really unstable and it could collapse underneath him or something like that. Excuse me, we could do that. That would be pretty cool. That would be pretty cool. The thing that I also like about this is with these portals, I think these are totally fair game that players want to search around the outside of the place and they find these portals, right? Because this is where the building walls have kind of collapsed with the partial collapse of the building. And so they can kind of pick their way in through there. I think this is a really cool map in general. I think it's hard to convey exactly what's going on in my brain with it, but I think I've succeeded well enough that we can just, you know, assuming that we will have to re-explain a couple times to players, which is fine. You know, I always have to do that with most things anyways. It's kind of the way it goes when you do, you know, anything that includes any level of theater of the mind. But as long as we accept that we might have to re-explain things to players, I think this gets the point across, and I think it makes it kind of a fun map with a lot of different, you know, approaches to how players want to do. So I think this is going to be good. I think this is going to be a good one. And so that gives us functionally 5 out of the 6 maps. We've only made 3, but it functionally gives us 5 out of the 6. So I'm going to make one more. Let's go start anew. Oh, whoops, I forgot to save. How many times have I spoken on stream about how I want to try and be better about saving more frequently, and then I just never do. I just never follow through with it. Okay. Anyway, let's start a new one here. So this one's going to be an interesting one. First things first. Their terrain, rather than settlement, they have a swamp settlement. I kind of want to do this and then add grass, because the idea that I'm going to go with, like, this is the one where we're going to have, like, the tortoises and crocodiles. It's going to be, like, formerly have been a hedge maze or something, that our rich people were enjoying. I put my heated blanket on my chair to kind of make it like a chair with a built-in seat warmer, which was one of the best ideas I've maybe ever had. I'm gonna be perfectly honest. I'm pretty proud of having thought about that. Problem is, because it's not actually designed to do that, it, like, you know, I've kind of got it like tucked up in under the headrest cushion here to hold it up, but, like, you know, my big butt when I sit down still kind of slowly slides it down, so occasionally I have to adjust it back up. But, you know, we make sacrifices for comfort sometimes. But yeah, we're gonna have this be like a swampy area here, and I want to kind of make it so that it's not actually meant to be a hedge maze, but it kind of accidentally turns into one, is what I want to do. And I think the way I'm gonna do this, the way I'm gonna set this up, is I'm gonna put down just some understated walls, because it's all gonna be bushes. There aren't actually walls around here really, but it's all gonna be bushes, and the bushes are meant to be like well above head height, so that they functionally are kind of like rooms. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna design kind of a wall setup here. We'll just do it with this thin wall, and then we'll just cover the walls in bushes, so that way it's like visually when players are looking at it, it'll look like there's bushes around. And so we'll have the entrance be over here, I think. And it's gonna be just kind of like a symmetrical what am I trying to say? Just like pattern, I guess, is the word I'm trying to find. That's maybe a little worrying. I can't think of the word pattern, but we'll just go ahead and let that one slide. And 1, 2, oh, and oh shoot, how did I make that? Yeah, okay, there we go. Yeah, so what I think I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of design a series of walls that kind of separate areas and kind of make rooms. There's not going to be any actual, like, rooms per se. But it's going to be partitioned into maybe about, like, 10 areas here. I'm thinking, like, we can do that. And just make sure we're keeping things symmetric there. Wow, that is visually not distinct at all. That is kind of hard to see. I'm going to just really quickly, we can change it back, but just for the sake of building things, I'm going to go to desert. Just that just makes it really easy to see, and we can always just terrain brush it back once we're done getting our walls and stuff in place. But boy, oh boy, it might just be me because of my color blindedness. But that brown on brown, oof, that is visually not distinct in any way, shape, or form. So, like, I'm thinking we'll do that like that. There's a wall that partitions kind of like this. Right, and then maybe it partitions this way. And maybe right here. I'm trying to think about what would be, because my thought is that it would be kind of like a large garden, like a large botanical garden that, like, you know, someone could walk through and there'd be like, maybe there's a bit of a garden over here, right? It's like maybe, and, you know, maybe just for the sake of, you know, their own, I don't want each one to be like too wide there, but it's like, so we got room there, room there, room there, room there, right? So we're kind of partitioning and making rooms, and we're going to have, the way things are going to be blocked off in a lot of these is, actually, you know what, I kind of like it with just like one base being there for most of these. Have like the 2 and 2 for the entryway. But it's like, it's kind of meant to be like, you know, you could go on a garden walk and observe all the different gardens, and there'd be different, like, you know, or there would have back in the day when this wasn't swamped out and overrun with creatures, there would have been different, you know, different areas with different types of flowers. Like this would have, like, you know, all annuals, and this would have all perennials and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Like, we can kind of break it up that way. But if we've got, like, we assume maybe the outside is one area. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We can break that into a couple more, I think. But it's like if we go like that and that, right? And it just kind of bisects things in half. And maybe there's another entryway to another part of the garden. And that goes to there. And what we can do is we'll go there. And what, that's 2 down from the center there. So we go like this, and then that, right? So we can kind of do that. And then like right here is where there's going to be like a crypt per se. And the crypt isn't meant to be extensive. Hey, Evelyn, how's it going? Glad to see you here. But yeah, we could like break that up. We go, maybe if we break up this room like that room, quote unquote, that we could do stuff like that. That gives us what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That gives us, that's kind of 9. Maybe if we just bisect this into like 2 areas as well. If we just do this, couple small rooms. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Like 10 being the perimeter there. I think that works out pretty well. I think that'll work out really well, and we can just then like fill up all of the areas surrounding all of these with bushes. And actually, you know what, now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, that's a good well, let's just see how we can decorate this. We'll figure out how we can decorate this, and we can remove walls if we need to. We do that, and then if we just do, let's get, actually what we can do is let's just use our cobblestones here, right? And so it's like if this is meant to be sort of our crypt area, our crypt room, right? Or like just the family shrine or whatever you want to call it, where they bury, you know, where that's where grandma's buried. So that the knobs are facing out. We do that door like that, and then we just kind of have inside of there is, you know, like a series of coffins that are lined up like that, you know, and it's like, yeah, the scaling will be a little off if it's like a family tomb that goes back generations and generations, right? It would obviously need to be a lot bigger, but we can put, oh, you know what we could do? We could put like a staircase that would like go down to more, and it would lead into a large thing, but it's all swamped and like overflown and everything with water like the rest of the gardens are. And that'll serve just fine. So we can do that. And then let's just get our flooring tool for that here. That can just be like dirt. Is that the dirt one? Cave, yeah, that'll work. Boom, there we go. Just have that in there, and that's where Grandma's bones are. Poor Graham. So if we do that, and then now if we go, we'll go objects. Let's object tool. Let's search for. Oh, let's see here. They have just like bushes or shrubs or something. Yeah, bush. There we go. So now we can take these. Let's unsnap these, and so we can just line all of these things with like bushes and everything. And if we do the scatter tool, it'll kind of randomize it a little bit, right? And so if we just kind of do this, it'll make it look more hedge maze like, while still letting us use our walls as barriers, so that way players can't just look over the shrubs, mechanically speaking, when we do this online. So it's a little bit of a hack, and it looks a little weird with the line going through there. But considering we're just like trying to sort of hotwire our system a little bit here, I think it'll get the job done perfectly adequately here. I'm content with it anyway. And really, that's all that matters, because I'm the one making this, and that's that. There's our daily dose of ego right there. My map. I can do what I want with it. But yeah, that'll make it look kind of hedge mazy. I think that'll do just fine. I think that'll work really well. I think it'll be an interesting setup, because what we'll do then is to like block off certain pathways and make it a bit more of a maze or a labyrinth, right? We'll just strategically plant those like the monsters that we decided are going to be there but aren't really going to be all that mobile. So like the giant snapping turtles and stuff, you just kind of plant them like in here, right? So it's like, even though there's a pathway there, you can't go along that pathway. Maybe there's a few of them that are all hanging out here, so this pathway into this room is blocked off, right? And then like maybe there's some right here just that eliminate this crossroads, just to make it more complicated to move around. And we can kind of use that as a way to funnel our players if we want them to have to face specific channels, right? And it's like, that's how we can funnel them. I always like that too, because you can use that as a way to funnel them towards a boss battle, even if you don't have the boss battle occurring in like the last room of the dungeon, right? We could basically put the boss battle here, but make it so that in one way or another they're going to be funneled towards having to do that. So it's like they have to face the boss at an odd time. And the reason I like doing that is because it helps. It doing it that way can really help make it feel more organic and make it feel more like a living world. Because if the boss is always conveniently placed right in the last place you have to go, along with, you know, whatever mission you're working on, it starts to feel a little predictable and a little convenient always. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because after all, we are playing a game, and most people will recognize like, hey, we're playing a game. I suppose we can kind of, you know, accept that not everything is going to feel like it would be if I were actually walking around in some sort of magical medieval land. But even so, it's more fun both for the DM and for the players, I find, if you sort of subvert those expectations at least every now and then, right? And if you can kind of get to a point where players know they can't just trust that, oh, we're facing the boss, this is the last room, or this is the most important room. If you can at least train them to not think that that's a reliable mindset, it can help keep them on their toes for the entire dungeon, and it can just kind of add to that sense of tension that any sort of dungeon is supposed to have. Because if it gets too predictable, if it's too easy for them to recognize, like, oh, well, you know, on the map we can see there's these 3 other rooms, so I bet you one of those will have the boss, so let's go ahead and reserve our spells, right? It's like if you give them a tough enemy that feels like it could be boss battle level difficulty, but they're only halfway through the dungeon, that can be a really good way to sort of add that tension for your players, where they're sitting there thinking like, well, it feels like I should be using my good heavy-hitting spells, but also there's a whole lot of dungeon left over here. Am I going to be using all my stuff up? And while that's admittedly a pretty strong example of metagaming, another thing that I find is if you assume that no player will ever metagame, then you're sorely mistaken, because it's not even a malicious thing. It just sort of happens, right? Like, that's what playing a game is about. Like, that's what being a human is about. You kind of learn things, and you learn to recognize patterns, right? And it's like, I don't even consider it unfair, because, like, you know, your character would start to pick up on patterns like that too. They're smart enough. So if you just kind of keep that stuff in mind and use some basic psychology concepts to subvert those standard expectations, you can kind of use metagaming against the players in a way. And it helps make it so that, one, metagaming is acceptable, but two, it's not going to break the campaign that you're running, right? It's not going to break the system that you're trying to put forth for your players. So, I don't know. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk, I suppose. So, yeah, see, that's looking pretty hedge maze-like. I like that well enough. A little manicured for a place that's overgrown, so I might also just go ahead and add some, like... I might even just add extra bushes with, like, a few walls that kind of are overgrown into, like, certain parts of the area to make it seem even more, you know, unkempt and chaotic there. I think that's what I'd like to do with this. Just so it looks a little less prim and proper. I mean, this place is supposed to have been abandoned for hundreds, maybe thousands of years. Like, I don't think the hedges are all going to be perfectly in line with where the ones were. I mean, realistically, assuming they would even be in place at all is a stretch, but, you know, it is Fantasy Magic Land, so we can kind of do that. That's okay. There we go. Okay. There. Hedge maze. Alright, let's see here. Let's add... Oops, that's not... I'm meant to... Control here. Want to... So yeah, I'm gonna do kind of that. And so we're just gonna, like... If we just kind of do stuff like this, and then maybe just choose, like... So, like, maybe this one's gonna be kind of blocked off, and we'll add our little bits of walls. You know, so it's okay to... Some of these just have hedges that are overgrown and... You know, kind of getting in the way of things. Some of them are just, like, jutting out into the rest of the area, and we can just kind of put a wall right there, so that way it serves and behaves like a wall. Because that's what I'm trying to achieve here. Is I'm trying to achieve a bunch of bushes that will behave as walls, and then we can kind of, you know, block it so they have difficulty moving around the perimeter always as well. I think just kind of going through and roughing up the edges a little bit of a lot of these will actually go a long way in making this look a bit more natural. Right, so we kind of do stuff like that. Yeah, that's actually already making a huge difference. Really making this look a lot more roughshod and unkempt, which is, I mean, that's really kind of what we're going for with it. Ultimately, yeah, we'll block that one off. Yeah, see, this is I already really like how this is looking with these little additions here. See, and that's why that's such a good example of why I really like to take my time and, you know, care about these details, because I really feel like doing that can really make the difference between something that looks okay and something that looks just like downright awesome. You know, this map was originally looking like, yeah, that suffices, to now I'm like, hey, this looks pretty good. Yeah, right. And we can kind of put a couple of those there, maybe a couple bushes that are in some of these areas out here, a couple bushes that are just like separate from everything else. Kind of looks like a bunch of cabbages. Which, you know, I don't have a problem with that, but Yeah, see, we do stuff like that. See, now already that looks so much better. I really like the way that looks. Like Men's Warehouse. Gonna like the way I look. Only it's the map and not me. Let's just, yeah, there we go. Look at that. All right, now let's go back to our wall tool here. This thing, and let's make sure that we've filled in. So like this one, let's see, snapping. Yeah, so we'll fill that one in, right? So now it's like actually a blocked off hedge. I mean, it would be kind of interesting if we really wanted to go all out with it, right? We could kind of set it up so that all of these, and yeah, and I'm going to go ahead and block off that path just like that, right? So when we got particularly thick bushes, we'll do that just to help make sure that, you know, all of our lines of sight and everything kind of behave like we're expecting them to. Yeah, this is actually going to look really good. I'm actually really pleased about how this is turning out now. That, because we could, if we wanted to, we could go through and we could almost put portals for all these, like doorways, and just have them automatically closed. And so it's like that would make it easy to, when using an online format, right, like an online tabletop, we could, I kind of want with these thick ones, I do actually want to like block off so that it really behaves like that full segment of bushes there. Yeah, I really do want to do it that way. Maybe not that one, just because of like this one we can. But yeah, it's like if we could do portals, you know, like do windows or doorways and have them by default be closed. Because then we could like allow players to, if they wanted to, like, you know, machete their way through and like open a portal between bushes if they wanted to do that. But I think honestly, if they want to take that route, I think it would be easy enough to just as DM, like, drag their pieces for them and move it through there if they wanted to do that, and just like describe for them what they see when they're, you know, busting through those areas. But yeah, I really like the way this is turning out, actually. I'm really pleased with this. That right there. That right there, just like that. I want to do like that for these ones too. Not that one, because those are pretty sparse, but this one. Oh, you know what we could do, actually? Hold on. For here, let's actually undo that one too. Like, this is where we can really take advantage of our not snapping with our walls, right? And we could just do these sections right here. Oh man, I almost want to do that for all of them. We could really get them to match up exactly with our stuff. But no, I guess I'm not going to worry about it. These ones are good enough as they are. And keeping them snapped on the grid there is probably good, because then it like will behave and it'll be easy for them to move without it kind of screwing up the line of sight. For out here, it matters a little less. So, okay. Oh, whoops, I need to... This one will keep snapped. Perfect. Okay, I think that covers all of them. Look at that. That actually looks really good. Looks really good. I'm pleased with that. I'm really pleased with that. Oh, that makes me happy. Cool. All right. Okay, I'm going to take just like a quick 1-minute break after in the bathroom. I'm going to blow my nose, not on camera because it's gross. And refresh my beverage so that way I can keep the fluids going and keep trying to kick this cold here today. Try and keep my throat functional for more streaming here. So I'll be gone for just a minute. I'll just leave you here with the music. I'll be right back. Post haste, I promise. I appreciate the patience. I'll be right back. Alrighty. There. Whew, much better. Feel like I was a sim. There were like half of my bars were at red for a second there. Had to blow my nose, had to go to the bathroom, I was thirsty. But we got it all taken care of. Although I'm definitely at that stage in the cold where I blow my nose enough that like we're getting that real nose chap thing going on. I don't care what the commercials say. There's no amount of lotion put into any single facial tissue that will prevent you from getting the cold nose the cold nose rash. Like there's just no way to avoid it. There's no way to avoid it, man. It's painful. Painful, and it's gross, and I'm not a fan. But hey, you know, what can you do? What can you do? It's better. It would be worse. It would be worse if I was just like sitting here dripping all over the place. That would definitely make it far worse. And I had to put some lotion on it. So hopefully that'll help. Alrighty, so let's see here. So we've got this map set up as this is right here. I actually don't know that there's a whole lot else that we need to do for this map right now. I'm pretty content with how it is. The only thing to do now is we'll go back to our terrain brush here. Let's go. Oh, that's one thing that we need to do. We're gonna bring this back to swamp here. I don't know if I actually want to do the swamp. Let me just see something. I think, yeah, I actually like the rainforest better where it's got the moss kind of growing because I want it to look like it's a lawn. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take our water brush and we're just going to like flood some of this area here. Right, and so we'll do this, and the idea is that like this is all water that's shallow enough for players to be, you know, walking through and traversing still. But it's, oh yikes, I gotta be careful. I'm gonna actually save this really quickly. Minadala. Oops, wait, hold on. Spell it right here. Minadala. It's part 4 here. It's part 4. Gotta save this. I gotta remember. Sometimes this is... I sometimes forget that this is still kind of an early access program, which I still love it. I think it's a wonderful program. But it's early access, and sometimes it can be a little buggy because of that. And so tools like this water tool, if I get a little too ambitious with them, sometimes it can cause a little bit of lag and even freezing to happen. So I always got to be kind of careful. But I really want this to look very flooded here. But it's kind of more so just like extreme rainfall kind of flooding rather than, you know, like sewer leak kind of flooding or something like that. But I think if we do that, that looks really good. And I think that'll actually suffice just fine. And so the idea is that players can still walk through all of this stuff, like all of this water and everything. It's shallow enough that there's not going to be any issues for them traversing the area. But now they have to kind of deal with the fact that there will be creatures that can kind of, you know, travel through the water a little bit. Maybe put a little bit more. I want to make sure that all of these areas... Oops, nope. Not mean to... Wait, there we go. Yeah, that's more like it. Don't mind that just being kind of like a little island right there. Yeah, in fact, it's actually kind of better if it's almost all water with like small stretches of not water. Yeah, I think that'll work there because I want there to be a lot of opportunity for creatures to utilize the whole like go under and over water, you know, because that's a key component of a lot of the monsters as we put them, is that they can kind of dip under the water to move around a little bit. So I think that'll work. That's perfect. I think that really kind of gets the idea across. I think that's really kind of a bit more to the point of the atmosphere I was looking for here at the outset of creating this map. I think that'll work just fine. I think that looks good. Okay. Perfect. All right, let's save that. There we go. And now let's just go ahead and actually put in our labels here. Labels. And we want our text box in there, of course. 1, 2. Yeah, see, I did it. I did it. Forgot that I can't be on space there. Shoot. You can't be holding down space when you go to move it. 2, 3, 4. Gotta go to move. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. This one's 6. That's 7, 8, 9, and then this one will be 10 right here. Like, one is the whole outside area, and then all of these are just these different little segments of our hedge maze area. Yeah, I actually really like this. I really like this. I think this is going to be a really cool, really fun map. I'm actually really pleased with the series of maps we've created so far for this chapter. I think they're going to be really interesting, sort of dynamic maps. I'm excited to try toying with, you know, how they're going to be different when players visit them multiple times. That's something that we haven't done in this campaign yet, so I think it's going to add a little bit of variety and a little bit of dynamicism. And it's gonna make things more dynamic than they have been. So I think that looks really good. I think it's really good. Content with that. Okay, so we got our maps made here. And now the next thing that I want to do here is I want to think about what we got to kind of stepwise figure out what maps go with what sections of our thing here. I gotta open up. I don't want to have them all accessible here. So now we can kind of take a peek at what all of these look like here and figure out which part goes with what. So 1 and 2. Gonna make sure we save all of these up there. Okay. Just in case something happens and they all crash, given how much we've got this program doing at the moment here. But yeah, so now I want to figure out what parts, what chapters or whatever are going with what. And I think for the most part, it's not going to be too much of a challenge it's not going to matter too much which ones go with which, but we want to pay attention to our sort of suites of enemies that we've put in. So like for this one so we've got the rhinoceros, we got giant goat, cow, and mule, and they're all kind of meant to be skinned as, you know, different rhinos and stuff like that. Like there's a herd of rhinoceri that moved into the area. So I think this one's going to really need a large flat area. So this is going to be a really good one for part 1 of the map, right? Where we've got kind of our, like this one right here, which is our city downtown. I think this is going to be a good one. There's like a herd of rhinos that are just kind of around and present. I think that'll work out just well. So we're going to say section 1 in the marketplace, part 1. And so that'll be good there. What was this one? Okay, this one is going to be horses and everything. Yeah, so we were going to do horses for this one. So this one might be a good one. Let's see. And this one, were these ones all going to be elephants then? Is that what we were going to go with? Yeah, we're going to go with elephants. Oh man, so all these are going to be kind of stuck to the ground here. Subterranean lizard. What was these guys going to be skinned as? Oh yeah, giant lizard. So these guys can be a bit more vertical. So these guys might be a good one for the temple. And then these guys, definitely all of the aquatics. This is going to be so this one. Constrictor snake. Oh wait, no. These are, what is these guys? Yeah, these are, oh, those are the lizards. Those are the lizards. I got confused there. These are the plants. So the plants would be really good. I think these ones will be really good. So section 5 will say in the temple part 2. I think these ones will be, because they're plants, they'll have a bit more, like we're already kind of, either they're plants that can grow up tall, like grow up high off the ground, or they're already sort of like magically enchanted in some way, shape, or form. And so I think these guys are going to be really good for using that temple, because we can have them go up. And I think these guys will actually be really good for the temple too, because lizards can have a bit more free range of motion. It's easier for them to go upstairs than like it is for a horse to do the same. So section 4 here we'll do in the temple part 1. We can do that. Temple part, so there's temple part 1 and part 2. This one will, so where is it? This section right here will be section 3. We'll say the family tomb, go with in the family tomb. So that's going to be in our last one, right? Because that's where we got all of the water-based creatures. That'll be kind of in that flooded area. So that works out well. Got those guys. We got those guys. Now we just got to figure out where we want to put all these guys. We used up our temple twice. Excuse me. So that means we've got our shop area once, and then our destroyed damaged house. So I feel like we have two ways to kind of approach the damaged house. We can either, like, in terms of figuring out what goes where. I guess when I think about it thematically, where there's rhinos, it would also make sense for there to be elephants. And so I think the elephants would be a good one to put in the city center again, like in the marketplace, because we can assume that the elephants kind of charging around and whatever is what caused a lot of the shops to get kind of busted down over the course of a day. So we'll say in the marketplace part 2. And then we can say that the horses are in the manor, right? In the manor. So the horses are there and wandering around, because we can almost assume that they're just sort of like the legacy horses of the horses that were once owned and cared for by the wealthy people that lived there, right? And so they just kind of continue to live there and have kind of gone feral to a point. I think that works out just fine. Plus, horses would be nimble enough that they could, like, presumably climb up to other parts of the building, and if there's like holes in the walls or doors left open, horses could have an easier time going in the manor. So that would make more sense. Whereas in and around the city, it would make more sense for elephants to just kind of be out in the open, or, you know, having smashed through walls and buildings and stuff. So I think that works out really well. I think that'll be just fine. Great. Perfect. Okay. Yeah, I think that'll work. I think that'll work really well, because that gives us all of our, we know what monsters are going to be in each area. We've got the maps, the basic rough cut of every map for each area kind of planned out. And so I think we're ready to just kind of start going on to the details here. Oh, excuse me. Each section is going to, again, have like something that ties it into the main thing of talking with the wizard here. So I do want to look here. Primary task, main story. Ultimately, players need to use teleportation circle within the wizard tower to transport to the elven city to find the key they're looking for. Get to the tower to find the wizard. Still living there. He's a little crazy at this point. Circle's damage needs to be repaired. Wizard can repair the circle, but needs stuff from in town, and asks the players to do it because he's scared of the monsters in the city. Fair enough. Side stories. Clues will be unearthed that the wizard is a lonely and maybe just a little tragic character. Clues will hint that he's been there for thousands of years somehow and has declining mental health in the isolation. Clues will indicate that he intentionally destroyed the teleportation circle because something undefined came out of it, endangering him. Over time, with the failing mental health, he no longer remembers why it was destroyed, or even that he did it. No clues about exactly what it was. Helps build suspense since our players are going into the portal towards whatever that threat was. Excuse me, my goodness. Oh yeah, and then the wandering boss, we're going to have our giant crocodile kind of occasionally sliding through like the marketplace or sliding around town while our players are in certain locations. So I think that's still fine. I think that'll work out really well. Yeah, I think we can do that. And so each section here will want to take the time to kind of map out like what the players are trying to get for our dude here and all that kind of stuff. So we'll kind of put a description here in this section for each section, I guess. I don't know. So for section 1, let's see here. Hold on, did we? There's like, I guess I need to add a little something here because all of this stuff is assuming that they've already kind of made it up to the wizard tower. So I'm gonna quickly I'm just gonna add a section here. I'm gonna throw an audible here. I'm gonna copy this. I'm gonna paste that here, and we're gonna do we'll just like, I don't know, prelude entering the city. Well, actually, we'll say first entering the city. So we're just going to say, I'm going to put this as DM note here just to make sure it's super clear. We're going to do DM note, and then we're going to offer a bit of a narrative here. So let's say for our DM note, when players first enter the city, they will have a clear objective in mind that they are trying to reach the wizard's tower in hopes of there still being a teleportation circle get to the other side of the mountain. We'll say when they are there this first time, don't have them go through any specific dungeons. Instead, use any of the actually, no, we'll say instead use the random encounter tables for the overall travel portions of this part of the map. They may find monsters, but mostly they can just quickly pick their way through the city to get to the towers, which is clearly visible standing over top of the rest of the buildings in the city. So we're just, I want to set a scene and just sort of describe, usually for the players arriving at the city. I'm actually going to add another part to that too. First entering the city and meeting the wizard. We'll do those two things. Did we come up with a name for this wizard? Yeah, we did. We totally did. Oh, what did we put it in here? I don't know if we put it in there. Hold on, let me find him. That's this guy. That's the guy. We're gonna copy a link to this page. Gosh, that's right. That's right. Zoltyrisis de Voileken goes by Sis. He insists that you call him Sis. That's what he goes by. I don't know. I don't. You haven't figured it out. I don't know what I'm doing most of the time. Just make it up as I go. Okay, so within find the wizard, and so what we'll do is we'll boom, put our thing there, just like that. There we go. Okay. All right. It just occurred to me that we didn't do that. So let's go ahead and add narrative stuff that we can just sort of read to our players to paint a picture if that's what we need. And so you just kind of say, approach the city from afar. You can see that it still stands, though even at this distance, it clearly has seen better days. Many of the buildings around the outskirts are little more than piles of rubble, while the nicer buildings tickle in the throat. Excuse me. While the nicer buildings towards the inner city appear damaged, though many still stand. Let's say, much to your relief, the tower which you seek still stands tall on the other side of the city, apparently sitting to the west, no, east, to the east of town, among the foothills of the mountain. As you get closer to the city, find yourselves among the ruined outskirts. Signs of wildlife are all around you. Mostly small critters like squirrels, birds, and the occasional fox flit about the ruins, seemingly afraid of you and your bipedal intrusions. However, the occasional, actually, let's see, how do I want to describe this? Let's see here. We'll say looking down various streets and alleyways, you do see shadows and we'll just say shadows and figures of larger animals, but it seems easy enough to avoid these creatures. Dang it. Maybe needing a cough drop soon. We'll see what happens. These creatures so long remain attentive as you go. Yep, I can feel it. I need a cough drop. I will be right back very shortly, I promise. There we go. Let's get that beautiful, beautiful, soothing menthol coursing through my system. Alright, okay. Good description there. That's perfect. Closer to the city, you find yourselves among the ruined outskirts. Wildlife are all around you. Okay, that's good. Add a little bit. And let's get to the wizard tower. They will find the front door unlocked. The tower is many stories tall, and in theory, there could be a lot to explore. We'll say, but we'll just put them back in here again. But Sis is very, wait, hold on a second. Is very alert and protective of his keep. Will immediately appear. Yeah, he will immediately appear before the players they enter. Is suspicious at first, but will warm up quickly so long as players are not threatening. So we'll just kind of do that. We'll just say we'll say yes, and your way through this conversation, keeping these primary points in mind. I try to not overly script any sort of conversations or interactions with an NPC. I mean, it's an easy thing to do, to want to try and like really script and direct a conversation, but you just can't predict exactly what tactics, what approach, what questions players are going to present. It may go exactly as you envisioned, or they may really throw curveballs at you. You just don't know what to expect. So it's easier to just kind of remember, like, these are the important bullet points. Like, make bullet points for things you definitely want the NPC to impart upon your players, as well as any bullet points for things that are like no-nos, like they won't talk about, they're not open to, things like that. So that way you can kind of let conversation flow while still remembering what is and isn't important to like discuss or avoid, depending on what you're trying to present. So we'll say, recording these primary points in mind, be a colon there. So we'll say things to make sure to discuss. Portation portal has been destroyed. Is willing to help recreate the portal. Will ask that players go out and get supplies for him to make the portal again. Like those are the really things. Those are the really important things that we want to make sure he discusses, right? That's like the critical. That's like mission critical stuff there. Um. We'll say things he is open about. So it's like these are things that he will go over, like he's willing to be open about, but doesn't like he won't bring it up, and it's not mission critical stuff, so we don't need to worry about it being presented to the players. Things open about has lived here a quote long time. Say doesn't remember or know exactly how long. Lots of dangerous monsters in the city. It's his responsibility to stay and watch over the city. Things he will not discuss. So these are things that, like, if the topic comes up, he'll immediately, want to change the subject and not go over with players. And so things that he will not discuss, nature of his tether to the tower, energy well deep underground that keeps him alive but stops him from leaving a certain radius. His past, as well as why the portal was destroyed. He doesn't remember. He doesn't remember why. Otherwise, he wouldn't be willing to recreate it. And so that's what some of the clues, like the side mission clues and everything that we're going to drop for our players throughout this chapter of our campaign are going to relate to. Kind of be those like hidden explanations for why he's the way he is. As we talked about, we kind of already fleshed it out for him. But actually, the easy way to do it, use our link here, right? So we already gave a pretty good detailed history about this guy. We have some more information that we could flesh out about this guy, but I'm not gonna worry about that today. This will be a really good thing for us to pick back up on when we go to our when we have our lore writing day coming up later this week. So, but yeah, we can kind of provide this stuff for our players. Things he will not discuss. And then we'll say one other thing I want to do is we'll just put this, and this is going to be a DM note. Sis will allow players to stay in his power in the guest accommodations. Like figuring out how I did that wrong. You can always tell. There's a certain point where my brain starts getting tired from all of the writing and creative stuff. There's a point where my brain and my approach to writing shifts from, oh, what did I do wrong? Let's try and figure it out. And like, I'll try and respell it just for the sake of puzzle solving. And then eventually I'll reach a point where I'm like, screw it, computer, just tell me what I did wrong. Like, you can always tell when the brain starts getting tired. That's why I don't do longer writing streams. Like, I would love to sit here and create for hours and hours and hours, but after a certain point, my brain and my fingers just kind of like turn to mush, and it gets harder for me to type coherently and come up with good ideas, Like, I feel like anyone who does any kind of writing, kind of like, everyone's a little different, but everyone kind of has like limits in what they're capable of doing. Especially in terms of how many hours they can just like sit working on the same project. Before, even if they're like working on the project, the quality of it starts to deteriorate. I don't know, anyone who's tried to write, I imagine, probably understands what I'm talking about. Because it just kind of gets to a point where your brain, just like, your brain gets tired, right? It's like the brain version of, you know, if you're like rock climbing and your fingers are eventually just like getting too tired to really properly grip onto anything, you know, and so you can just kind of feel yourself falling, you know, or like the skin, the calluses on your hands start getting really sore, so it's like every grip just hurts, so it's harder to climb up, like that. It's like a brain version of that, where you just kind of get fatigued. And you can always tell, I always seem to reach that point, you know, when we started 11:30, I always reach that point somewhere between 1 and 1:30, right? When we're within that last half hour of the writing stream is when my brain switches over. It's why I always do the 2 hours. Like I say, I would love it if I could mentally sit here for, you know, 4, 8, 15 hours, whatever, and just write and just create, because I have all these ideas. But getting my brain to function and keep everything moving at an appreciable, productive momentum without messing things up and getting things garbled really deteriorates after a certain point. There's only so much I can do. Anyway, this will allow players to stay in this tower in the guest accommodations. There will be bits and pieces of information to learn about him in these accommodations. Actually, I did again. Hold on. Oh, I'm missing an M. That's what I'm doing. I'm only doing one M. Accommodations. There it is. There we go. See, look at that. I brought it back. I flexed. I worked that brain just a little bit harder. Just to prove that I'm still capable. What if I'm tired? Oh my goodness. Alright, be bits and pieces of information to learn about him within these accommodations. Such as journal notes, or hearing him talking to himself, etc. And we'll probably want to make a list of those things. I'm not going to worry about it today. We'll say if players try, have them do investigation checks and feed them one of the below bits of info. And then we're just gonna do insert, actually we'll do caps lock that. Insert list of info bits. There. We did it. Check it off the list. Now we'll worry about that later when my brain's a little less foggy here. List of info bits, because like that's gonna be a little tricky, because I want to make sure, I almost want to save that for last, because I kind of want to see what all we're gonna let players possibly learn out in the world. And probably what I'll do is maybe add a couple other unique things, but really probably use that as an opportunity to, if while they're out, especially because if they go back to the same map multiple times, the map's going to be different. So there's like, this is kind of one of the first times where there'll be potentially missable stuff for our players, right? I mean, I guess there's kind of that way when we're talking about like the vaults that get flooded after a certain point. They could essentially miss any of that stuff. And I mean, functionally, players, unless there's a really good reason to, they're not going to go back to places. It's not like an RPG where people will just, like, once they're a higher level, go back just for the sake of clearing things out and looking for hidden Easter eggs and stuff like that. D&D doesn't typically play out that way. I mean, you could kind of structure a game to do that, and actually I think it would be kind of fun to do that. And like, that's kind of why I set up my campaigns and like have everything kind of planned out and mapped out before starting a campaign. Because I like to give my players like at least that option to go back to different places and explore different things. But generally speaking, just because of how narrative D&D is, it's not the same as like when you're playing, you know, I don't know, any of the Zelda games where it's like, and you're like, oh, I have this new item. Maybe I'll go back to that old dungeon and see if I can unlock this, that, or the other Easter egg. Like there was that, you're playing a game and it's like, oh, there was that one chest that I couldn't jump to, but now I just got the double jump ability, so I should be able to jump to that, right? And so it's like they hide different tools and stuff like that way. D&D just doesn't really play out that way for most groups. I'm not going to say, never say never. I'm not going to say for any group. But it just doesn't really play out that way because people are much more narratively driven. And they treat it much more like real life, right? Like I don't go back to high school to see if I can, find different things in different closets that as a kid I wasn't able to open the door to, but now as an adult, like I could probably ask permission, or I know how to pick a lock, right? You don't do that in real life. And because of how narrative D&D ends up being, most people don't, approach it from the same gaming perspective as if you're playing Dark Souls, right? And you want to go back and see if you've collected all of the items in, an area once you're stronger and more able to handle whatever hidden bosses you might come across. And so, I give my players the option if they do want to play it that way, because part of me always thinks it would be kind of fun to have like a completionist D&D campaign where it's like you have a map with all kinds of places and it's like, yeah, you can go off and like there is a point where you can check off and have done everything in the campaign, right? So I always kind of loosely design my campaigns that way, but not really, because that's a lot of work to put in for something that really just as much as I love doing the world building and I talk about how it doesn't really bother me, there comes a certain point where it's like I could sit here and fuss over this many details, right, and this many things, or we can continue to expand our world. So, how did I get on that? Oh yeah, so like, so to kind of bring it back where I was, where that all came from, I designed most of my world so that players can go back, even if they're not likely to do that. But this map, the way we're designing this chapter, right, where it's like they're going back to different areas, but the areas are going to change a little bit every time they go back. This is kind of the first time where there's going to be some really obvious missable stuff for our players to interact with and experience. So I kind of want to use this as an area to, like, I think I'm going to design it just to make sure that I don't accidentally hamstring my players, or even just make my players be frustrated, right? Because it's me playing with a group of friends, right? That's what D&D typically is for most people. Like you and a group of friends just sitting around having a good time. So I don't want to like make them mad arbitrarily. If it's a boss that's really tough, it's like, yeah, well, go do some other parts of your adventure and come back. That's your, this is your big bad. You got to earn that, right? Other than that, it's like I don't want to cut them off from like a really cool item, or anything like that. If they're just like, oh shoot, we should come back for this later, and then if they forget about it and then like it's completely gone. I don't know. I guess in a way that's kind of a fun way to make the world feel a bit more real. But I guess what I'd rather do with that is try and design it so that most of that missable stuff is going to be these bits of lore, and then we can use this as kind of like a repository for players to sort of refine that stuff if something happens and they miss it. Like this can be a good way for them to kind of get that stuff still if they so choose, right? And it's like an organic way enough that it doesn't feel like I'm game mechanicking it too much, if that makes sense. So I think we'll fill out this list once we've really mapped out the rest of this campaign, or the rest of this chapter in the campaign. So for now, we'll just leave that right there. How are we doing on time? Yeah, we still got some time. So allow players to stay in his tower. So let's see, and we'll also say, while staying in the tower, the players will be aware that there are far more floors and rooms to the tower than they have access to. However, there will be no apparent staircases or other ways to access these floors, suggesting that this utilizes magic to reach them, ensuring strangers cannot gain access without him explicitly bringing them along. Say, which he will not do with the players. We're just gonna say a few days is not enough time for him to truly trust them. For him to truly trust them. He is friendly and happy to have company, but he doesn't actually trust the players, or anyone for that matter. Too much time has passed with him in isolation for him to be capable of easily understanding and trusting other people. So he's been alone for too long. He doesn't really know how to interact with people. He doesn't, like, that stuff is kind of gone, right? Like we talked about this with his history, where he's utilized magic, a lot of very complex magic, to keep himself alive for a couple thousand years at this point in time. But doing so, like, just the nature of how magic works in my world, how it kind of causes that magical, you know, when you're in the presence of strong magic, there's sort of a magical radiation that can really impact someone over time, right? Like, radiation is really the accurate word for it, because it's the same as if you were, you know, by living in Chernobyl, right? It's like that radiation will impact you over time. And so the magic, while it keeps him alive, has also kind of deteriorated his mind and his memory quite a bit. So he's just not all there anymore. And a part of that, and it's kind of a trope that you see a lot, but it's one that works and it serves a convenient purpose. One of those things that's kind of happened is he's just kind of paranoid. So he's just not going to end up trusting them. And I think it's fine to kind of put our foot down and say that there are some things that our players, no matter what they do, no matter how many natural 20s they roll, they're just not going to be able to do, right? You can be as persuasive as you want, but some people just are not going to be capable of trusting other people. And that's just how it goes. And that's part of the challenge, is them trying to figure out how to get the answers they want and the results that they want without relying on being able to succeed at some of these particularly sticky situations like this, right? Like, they're going to be able to get him to trust them enough that he'll make that portal for them, because, like, in his addled mind, right, like, he remembers that part of his job is to maintain these teleportation portals, right? Because he'll remember that his job thousands of years ago, when the city was still up and running, part of his job was to help facilitate transport of people to and from different places, right? Like, he was the most powerful wizard in town. That was just kind of what he did. That was his job. And so when they bring that up, he'll be like, "Oh, yeah, that's my job, of course. Oh, I'm so sorry that this thing has been destroyed. Oh, gosh, where's my mind been?" Right? And, like, he'll approach it from, like, a professional standpoint, and he's willing to do that. But, like, you know, he doesn't remember that his brain has been addled and stuff, and he doesn't remember that he himself destroyed it for a good reason. But there are a lot of other things that he's very paranoid about, right? So his brain is just, like, really, really Swiss cheesed up, right? There's a lot of holes and everything in there. And so just part of that is just that he's not going to be able to trust our players. And I think that's a good one for us to sort of really stamp our foot down. Because I think there's something powerful about a character that our players can't win over, but is also not an enemy. You know what I mean? I think players will sometimes, at least in my experience, players will sometimes sort of reach this mindset of, you know, black and white with NPCs, where it's like, either they are our best friend and ally, or we hate them and we would be content to kill them all the time, right? Like, players really end up taking pretty extreme approaches with NPCs quite frequently if you give them the room to. So I like limiting that. I think it serves actually a pretty interesting purpose to kind of in a game where, as I've like said myself, the point is that we're having fun with friends, right? There's still kind of an interesting aspect when they don't get everything they want all the time. And that's kind of what makes it feel like a more believable challenge, a more believable game, right? A more believable world for them to explore. So there's a whole lot of balance that goes into it. And I'm not saying that I know exactly what the right balance is, but to me, it feels like this is a really good situation to kind of flex that a little bit and give them a situational ally, even if it's not going to be a friend, right? And so we can give them little tidbits where if they want to snoop into this guy's privacy, they can do that. And we can even structure some of these things so that they might feel guilt about having, investigated in this guy in places he clearly did not want to share, right? And them learning about him and learning about his sort of tragic character nature, right? Without it being like, oh, we're going to be best buddies, we're going to save this guy. Not everyone can be saved. Is kind of what I'm thinking with this guy, which, I guess kind of flies in the face of what I've been saying about this chapter, where I really wanted it to be lighthearted. But I guess when we look at all the other things I've done in comparison, it's still pretty lighthearted. At least there's a guy who's friendly and is unlikely to die a horribly tragic death. We're not going to make him die. He's just going to open up that portal, and they're going to go in towards the danger, which is going to sort of inherently protect them from it. Or protect him from it, because they're going to go there and handle it. But I don't know. Long explanation that, doesn't really amount to much other than to say, there's a reason why I'm going to make sure that this guy is not one that really becomes, like close personal friend and ally to the players, right? I want there to be characters that are just kind of like gray area towards the players. Even if they do everything right. Sometimes that's just how things go. It's kind of like a modified version of which Star Trek character was it? Was it Spock? Was it Spock or was it Kirk? I don't remember exactly who said it, but the line of like, sometimes you can do everything right and still lose, and that's life, right? Like I kind of like putting those things in my games. I think it makes them feel just a little bit more impactful, the players, and it's like, hey, if we're gonna take the time, put this much energy into something, let's make it worth our time, with a few, even if they're a little lofty, even if they're a little high on their own horse, throwing those little things in there, I think can really help beef up a campaign to a degree. So that's good. I think that's good there. I'm glad we got this kind of figured out. I'm glad I remembered to take the time to do this. This is the kind of stuff, just like these entering the city bits, that would be easy to forget because we're getting so caught up in, all these cool maps and stuff that we've made. I'm really proud of these maps. I think these maps are going to be really fun. I think they've got good diversity and complexity that they're going to be really fun for players, despite the fact that on the surface, mechanically, this is a pretty simple chapter. It's, it's all fetch quests. It's like, go out, grab this thing, come back, fight simple monsters. They're not magical monsters. They're not like horrible liches that have, all kinds of ulterior motives and backup plans and everything like that. It's just a bunch of monsters. You got to fight your way through to get the item and come back. I think mechanically it's very simple, but that frees us up to really get some of these more interesting, complex maps that we can start playing around with, especially later this week when we kind of keep writing. But for now, I'm looking at the time. I'm going to take a break, just like 10-15 minutes like I usually do. Just to kind of rest my voice, especially today, to rest my voice with this cold going on. And then we'll be back. We're going to do some more streaming. I'm not done streaming for the day. Normally what has been the course of action is on Mondays, normally I would play Neverwinter Nights. But I'm just going to say it. I need a break from that game. We've been working on that game for months. And it's really fun, and I intend to finish it, but I need a bit of a break. And so, and what I'm gonna do, just because I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna be a lemming, and I'm gonna follow the trends here, and I'm gonna play a little bit of Elden Ring, because I have been excited about that game, and I've been watching everyone else have fun with it and be excited about it, and gosh dang it, I want to jump on that bandwagon. It looks so much fun. So we're gonna play that one. Gameplay very different from Neverwinter, though. though setting, you know, comparable. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna do that for a couple hours once I come back after I take a break. Hey there, Neldrin Ethereal, oh wow, that is complex. I'm gonna try and say it. Virsaris. I hope I said that right. Welcome. Hopefully you weren't hoping for a couple more hours of writing. I will be back with more writing later this week, for sure. But yeah, I'm gonna take a break. You can definitely hang out, and we can still talk D&D and talk video games while I struggle and die a whole lot at Elden Rings, because I'm not good at FromSoft games, but boy oh boy are they fun. So let me bring us over to chatting here, so I can just do our little crossover, and I can just do my little thing, my little spiel for the sake of the VOD. Like I say, I will be back. I will be back doing more writing, if that's what you're here for and you want to see more writing. My stream schedule is Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time zone, each one of those days is when I do my writing. So if you're here for the writing, that's totally fine. I totally understand. Come back tomorrow, and we'll be doing more writing. Or go check out my YouTube channel, EnviroBoy, unless you're already watching the VOD on the YouTube channel, in which case this is a weird future meta thing. I don't know. It always kind of trips my mind out a little bit. But you can watch. I put all my VODs on YouTube, so you can see all the other stuff that I've written and stuff on my YouTube channel. I've got it all set up into this big, massive playlist. It's got hundreds of videos in it at this point in time. So that's what's coming up later this week. You know, and then each of those days also, just to finish outlining the schedule, each of those days at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time zone again is usually when I switch over and do some sort of gaming. Like I say, today we're going to do some Elden Ring because I just really want to play that. I'm being completely selfish there. I know we're not finished with Neverwinter Nights. I recognize that. I promise I will finish it at some point in time, but I need a break from that game, and Elden Ring looks like so much fun, so we're going to play that. Oh, good. Well, yeah, you found a good channel for it. Like I say, every 4 days a week, as long as I'm not like too sick like I was last week, we do writing, and I do all kinds of different world building and stuff. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. I'm glad you liked it. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Like I say, if you want to hang around and chat about world building, like that's the good thing about Elden Ring. It's gonna be really good game for us to just discuss world building, because FromSoft, like they do some cool world building. So we can still definitely talk about that. But you know, that's the thing. I'll be back tomorrow with writing. I'll be back Thursday and Friday with writing. So there's all kinds of world building discussions and stuff to be had on this channel. So you found a good place. I'm glad you found your way here. Let's see, just for the sake of the VOD, I'll just go over. You can find. I'm just gonna talk about all my social links that you can find me on. You can find all of these on the About section or in the video description below, whether you're on Twitch or YouTube. You can find all of this stuff there, but just to sort of, you know, say it out loud, you can find me. I already mentioned YouTube. I do have a Discord server. If you like talking about world building and homebrew and all that kind of stuff, Discord server, we get a lot of people that'll share different ideas, different things that they're working on. I love interacting with people, seeing the stuff that they make. It's really fun. So get yourself hooked up with that. Everyone's welcome. We'll get you in the discussion. Have fun with that. I also use Discord to announce when I'm going live or if there's changes to my schedule too. So it's a really good place to stay connected if you're interested in what I'm doing and the stuff that I'm creating and all that kind of stuff. You can also find me on Twitter at EnviroStreams. That's where I'll put up all of my. I for the most part, again, use that for announcements about when I'm going live and stuff like that too. And sometimes I'll share whatever stupid thought goes in my mind. I don't know how to use Twitter, but it's there. If that's your jam, you can follow me there. Also have an Instagram, EnviroBoy Streams. I've actually been having a lot of fun sharing all of the stuff that I a lot of times will talk about going on in my life that doesn't actually show up on streams. So like my kickboxing, my rock climbing, stuff like that. That's a really good place. I'll put clips of all those things. So if you think that stuff is neat like I do, you should check me out there, and you can see some of the goofy stuff I get up to. Also lots of cat photos and videos there too. So, you know, if that's your thing, and I mean, whose thing isn't it, right? So yeah, you can follow me there. The only other link there is you'll find my donation link. Donations are always appreciated, but honestly, just people hanging out here and watching and enjoying the stuff that I'm doing, sharing ideas and all that kind of stuff, liking, subscribing, all that kind of stuff. That's my favorite form of support, is just people hanging out and having a good time. So honestly, if that's what you're doing, then you are already doing more than enough in my book. So I appreciate you guys. Yeah, definitely join the Discord. Definitely join the Discord. Everyone's welcome. Everyone's welcome. We'll get you sometime before the day's over. We'll get you verified so that you can join the conversation and share ideas and stuff like that. It's a small community, but we got some really creative people there. It's a really good place. And like I say, everyone's welcome. So, all right. So like I say, I'm gonna take a bit of a break. We'll be back. You guys can watch me create some sort of goofy character and die a whole lot in Elden Ring. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm so excited to play that game. You guys have no freaking idea how excited I am to play that game. I was sitting there thinking like, oh, well, let's just finish Neverwinter. Then I was looking at how long I've been playing Neverwinter and how I'm only like roughly halfway through. And I'm like, let's take a break. Let's take a break and let's play something new and fun. Let's do it. Let's do it. I love Neverwinter, but gosh dang it, I want to play Elden Ring. So that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do today. So I'm gonna take a break. I'll leave you guys here with some music for a little bit. There will be a hiccup in the stream when I switch it over to Elden Ring for the sake of the VODs. But yeah, I'll be back in like 10-15 minutes, and we will have some fun gaming. So yeah, either if I don't see you for Elden Ring, I'll see you later this week. Otherwise, I'll see you in a few minutes. Either way, I'll catch you cats on the flip side, and I'll be back shortly.